where there were cavemen, right? Except there wasn't such a thing. Not really. Human beings have always been smart, and they've always been fast, and they've always had their stuff together, or they wouldn't be here. That's the plain fact of it. If you just look at Florida's ancient environment, the environment that would have welcomed the first people here, there was a thing called a short-faced bear. You listen to Yona's bear story. This thing, well, it was huge. It made a polar bear look really small. I mean, it was just a massive bear. And what it hunted like bison. And with a single swat, it could take a baby bison down and devour it. This was a massive animal, and there was saber-tooth cats here. There was jaguars. There was a cheetah-like cat here, and there was the American lion living in this area. And the American lion was much bigger than the African lion. And then on top of that, you had two kinds of wolves living here, a dire wolf and the normal gray wolf were living here. And so think about it. Just taking a stroll down to a water hole would have been a challenge. So to be real slow, to be primitive, to what we call primitive, to be cavemen, that's silly. That's absolute nonsense. Human beings were never that way. They were always very quick and very bright, and they had their stuff together. So what's the problem? What are we looking at when we're looking at early people into the Americas? Well, the problem is dates, isn't it? The scientists really don't like to go any further than 12,000 years ago. They want 12,000 years ago. When was the first people that came here to the Americas? 12,000 years ago. That just is crap. Because like all over the country, everybody's finding stuff that goes further back. Now we know for sure, for absolute certain, that there were people 14,500 years ago in Florida. We got the dates. There's no way around it anymore. 12,000 years ago isn't going to cut it. Why would you want 12,000 years ago? Why are they holding on to 12,000 years ago? Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. Some of them are political, and they really aggravate the hell out of me. But one of the big problems is there's this thing called the ice-free corridor, okay? If you look at North America, over here is California. Is that right, or do I have it in the reverse? Over here's, over here is New York. Over here is California, right? And you got these giant glaciations, these massive walls of ice that come together in the middle, right? And they stop everything from going either out of this country or into this country. There's nothing that's going to go across the Bering Strait and get in here until 12,000 years ago it begins to melt. Now, if any of you want to take a lump of ice and put it in the middle of the table, what you're going to discover very, very fast is that lump of ice is going to turn into water, right? Isn't that normal? That's a good way of thinking about it. It's going to turn into ice or into water. So you've got mountains of ice, and what are they doing? They're melting. And what are they creating? Some of the biggest lakes on the planet's history. And where are they? They cover the ice-free corridor. There's no way into North America after 12,000 years ago until 6,000 years ago. Okay, that's it. There's no way in. It's just this massive blanket of water. 5 times bigger than Lake Superior. So what are we going to do with that? That doesn't work. And then what about all these sites that are so much earlier? Right? Well, the other side of this is political. So, when did Europe happen? Almost all of us in this room have some European blood in it. I'm German, all right? So, when did the Germans happen? Well, come on, I'm German. What do I think? What do I think? When did the Germans get to Germany? They've been there forever. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. The truth of it is right over London, England, right over Paris, right over Berlin, there was a glacier. And it was the Great European Glacier. And it covered the whole thing. I mean, it was solid block of ice. And we talk about Neanderthals, you know. I mean, this whole thing with Neanderthals, I'm going to help you on this one too, because it aggravates me. I'm talking about what aggravates me. Come on. But this aggravates me. You know, we came along and killed the Neanderthals, didn't we? Isn't that what they tell us? Oh, you know, we're better hunters, smarter critters, all the rest of that stuff. Baloney, right? The Neanderthals had Europe. They owned it, lock, stock, and barrel, but there wasn't much to it. Remember, there's this huge field of ice that goes all the way up through Moscow, all the way up through, up into, almost into Siberia. But there's a weird thing that happens. Siberia, cold, right? Cold, cold, cold. Now, in this day and age, when that great glaciation was happening, Siberia didn't have any ice. It was open range. And if you could have gone there, you'd have been amazed. You'd have thought that Africa was paltry in comparison. The animal life in Siberia was incredible. Mammoths, mastodons, saga antelope. There's these little antelopes. They're only about this tall. They have this long, snouty kind of thing. They're just kind of a funny looking critter. By the millions, reindeer. I mean, if you could go to Siberia during this time, one of the things you'd realize is what's creating the glaciation in Europe is the Gulf Stream, right? The Gulf Stream comes up towards Europe. It's warm, it's moist, it's sweating, right? England today gets how much rain? Tremendous amount of rain, and that rain is pouring out as snow, and this glacier built up, and that's what that's all about. So you're not getting the same kind of glaciations in Siberia that you're getting in Europe. So my people, the Germans, were they in Germany 10,000 years ago? Oh gosh, just barely, just starting to come in. All right, now let's get rid of the Neanderthals. The most recent evidence is that the Neanderthals died out about 30,000 years ago. And why would the Neanderthals die out? Did we really kill them? You think we really killed them? Let me tell you what, these guys, they were tough. And they'd been living in this environment right on the edge, right along the edge of this glaciation. And they've been eating these animals, that whatever they could catch. And a lot of it was hand done. Okay, they would run over and try to grab an animal's fur and stab it to death. These were tough critters. And if you think for a minute that we walked into Europe and said, you guys are done, that's wrong. Actually, what we did is we took one look at them when we got out of Africa, and we said, wow, you guys are cool, right? And how about camping together at night? And you know what happens at night, right? Sure, when you camp together. And so we have a certain percentage of Neanderthal blood where? Inside of us. But what did we carry out of Africa? What Africa is Africa is one of the most incredible places on our planet in that it's the heart of us. And when I say that, what you want to imagine is that every parasite that is known to humans dances in Africa. They love it. They grew up with us. They know us right down to the last cell. They can tell exactly when they should get into you and make your life shorter. Right? And so 100,000 years ago, when we stumbled on out of Africa, well, the first place we stumbled on into was Siberia. All right? Now, nobody's telling you this yet. They're beginning to find the fossil evidence now. But the first place we stumbled in. How do I know that? Any hunter in his right mind would have gone right for Siberia. It wasn't the way it is today. Afghanistan wasn't a desert. Turkestan, Turkmenistan, all those countries were not just parched earth. They were lush. They were forested, right? And that's where these guys headed off into. They also headed off into a trap. And it's a magnificent trap because what they did is they headed into India. Now, when you think about India, everybody knows the Himalayas, but what you don't often think about is that on both sides of India there's mountain chains as well. But they could cross the mountain chains that were toward the African side. Once they got in, they were trapped in it. There was no way through those Himalayas at that time. Remember, you're talking about the verge of great glaciations, or the glaciation is really going. And so they're not getting through there. So they were trapped in India. Think about some of the earliest evidence of human beings. I mean, our kind. India. Loads of it. The Indus River Valley, all that area. Lots and lots of people developing in India. But now think about going to Europe. Europe ain't no fun. Europe's not the place to go. Right? If you go to Europe, you're going to have some problems, right? Now, the good thing about Europe is a few of you might get up in there. And you're going to meet Neanderthals up in there. And you're going to share some evenings around a campfire. But you're going to share a lot more than that, aren't you? You're going to share the diseases you brought from Africa and the end of the Neanderthals in that moment. They just simply couldn't deal with the pathogens that we were bringing out of Africa. I mean, we had it, and they didn't. And they'd been developing all those thousands of years without it. Go on. Now, the neat thing is recently they've been finding people coming out of the north around the glaciation around 10,000 years ago, and that's probably when my people started thinking about getting into Germany. So what are we talking about now? We're talking about dates in America that are going back 28,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago. There's some people out there pressing for 60,000 years ago. And you're talking about us getting into Europe, 10,000 years ago? Why, that ain't gonna work, I can tell you that's for sure. So the Indians got here 12,000 years ago. But it's just make-believe, isn't it? It's just baloney. They got here when they got here. 10 to 1, because of the nature of the landscape, and that's what we really want to look at, is how the landscape works. They probably went across the Aleutian Islands in boats, and they probably made it 28,000 years ago or earlier. We don't know. The truth of it is nobody knows when they got here. But what happened was incredible. Now, we want to talk a little bit about the American Indians and how incredible they are. We have a little bit of Neanderthal genetics in us. But the American Indians go a little further. There's these critters up there in Asia called Denisovians. And they're new. I mean, the only thing that we have from Denisovians, it's a little tiny cave, right? And all that they've got is a finger bone and a tooth. And from that, they've been able to figure out that these people are a whole different genetic system. They're like Neanderthals, right? They're different than us. They're different than Neanderthals. And that's what the Indians have. They have a little Denisovian. They stopped by some campfires and enjoyed themselves around the campfires, and then headed on across into Kamchatka, the Kamchatka Peninsula, picked up some boats, and came over here. And so American Indians have a little bit of that Denisovian blood in them, in their genes. That's a kind of incredible story when you really think about it. But there's something else that happened that's absolutely mind-blowing. And it's something that we all need to recognize. When they came here, they left Europe behind. Think about if you could leave Europe 28,000 years ago, where was all of Eurasia and Africa compared to where we are today? Well, they were early hunters and gatherers. There's no civilizations yet there. We're not talking pyramids here, folks. Those things are relatively recent when you compare them. We're talking about way before the pyramids, way early history. So when these people came into the Americas, they did something incredible. They had a chance to reinvent humanity. All right? Now, when you look around this room, all of us are so similar, so similar. You know, the way we think about things and what we expect out of life, that we all use money and that we all do all these other things together. We're so similar. But I want to tell you, the American Indians were not similar. They simply weren't. They were unique, absolutely unique. They got into this landscape of North America first. Imagine what was laying out in front of them, right? I mean, not only North America, Central America and South America, it's a lot of landscape, a lot of different critters, a lot of different property. And some of it's just loaded with volcanoes and stuff. That's really amazing. And they experienced all this. Now, what happened is, as the glaciations broke down, there were massive floods. And these floods were unbelievable. We can't even imagine floods. She's all right, just the way she is.
Okay.
I talk loud.
Thank
Right?
you.
Yeah, don't worry about nothing. But these floods were just incredible. Think of the Mississippi River today. Well, if you've been there, I don't know about you, but I was a little disappointed. You know, I thought, Mississippi River, right? And what I saw was, Mississippi River. You know, it's okay. You know, it's not that big. It's not that big. It's, what, a mile wide where it's pretty wide, right? It's not all that wide. But then you think about the floodplain. And the floodplain is 50 miles wide to the side, 100 miles wide. And when those floods broke out, the biggest lake was called Lake Agassiz. And when that broke out, man, that had to be something else. It swept down there, down the Mississippi River Valley, and carved 100 miles wide. When I was a kid, we were having a problem. There were all these rocks in the mouth of the Mississippi River, right? And they were smooth. They were glacial till, and they were in the mouth of the Mississippi River. Wait a minute, you know the glaciers didn't get that far down. They just didn't. So how did that till get down there? See, and so wonderful scientists, men with incredible knowledge and women with great knowledge, they said, well, how fast would the river have to run in order to get those rocks to tumble down that river? Well, it wasn't that way. It was ice. Those rocks were locked in the ice, in glacial ice. And they roared on down that river, and when they hit the Gulf of Mexico out here, they began to melt, and down they went. There was so much fresh water that hit the Gulf of Mexico that it actually created a freshwater lens over the entire Gulf of Mexico. You could have walked down to the Gulf out there and dipped up fresh water. And you want to imagine, when we talk about environmental disasters, you want to imagine the scope of that environmental disaster for all that life out there and for all the life along the shore. It had to be horrendous what happened. And when it tipped North America and it comes back up, it suppresses the Gulf Stream, and that's one of the stories that caused a thing called the Younger Dryas. That's 12,900 years ago, something horrific happened in North America. We don't know what it was, but all of North America, all the animals went extinct. You know, you guys haven't seen any mammoths and mastodons running through your yards lately. They're all gone. You know, no American lions, gone. Right? When you think about it, it's a great extinction. Now, we like to blame that on the American Indians. And that aggravates the hell out of me. Well, I'll tell you, I'm getting rid of them. I'm going to feel better after this. Right? But, you know, no, it's not the American Indians. They didn't do it. What happened is something incredibly destructive happened in North America. Was it these huge floods? We don't know. But there's another thing. It seems that something, it's a comet, is the way people like me like to think about it. It was like Shoemaker-Levy. It came close to Jupiter, broke into just, but not like Shoemaker. Instead of being like Shoemaker-Levy, it didn't just break into a line of pearls. It broke into millions of pieces. And our planet just passed through it, a little bit of it. Does our planet pass through the tails of comets? Well, sure, that's the meteor showers that we got. Those are the tails of comets, right? So this isn't impossible. This is very realistic. And when it did, these things came out of the sky, and they wiped out all life in North America. It's called the Younger Dryas trigger, and they wiped out all life in North America. And the one thing for sure, it wiped out all the human life as well. Now, I've got a lot of friends that are Native Americans, and I've always been puzzled what they say to me. They say, you all don't get it. We don't come from the north, we come from the south. I've had Cree tell me that. Cree say, no. We didn't come down from the north. You got us wrong. We came from the south. Well, think about it. With North America a blank canvas against, once something comes in here and destroys life in North America, where are the people coming from? Central and South America. Makes sense. Where'd the bison come back from? Actually, I think it's Central America. So this is an incredible puzzle. And I'm viewing things here that are very different. Now, we were talking earlier about theories, and you don't ever want to listen to me and not say, that guy's full of theories. Because that's true, I am full of theories. But I like to read a lot. And so I really feel like I could back up a lot of this stuff. Now, real quickly with the Tocobaga, because I know it's time that we really got to wind it up. Something happened here. I don't really want to get into it, but something happened here. When the Narvaez expedition came in 1528, it was horrific. Garcilaso says that it was so bad that he won't write about it. That happened here, where we are, in St. Petersburg. In this area of St. Petersburg, as a matter of fact. Now, Garcilaso says, well, or through Ortez, right, he says, well, they cut the cacique's nose off, and they fed his mother to the dogs alive, right? This is depressing stuff, isn't it? She's not very pleasant. It's terrible. But what occurred to me is, well, how did they get this woman? How did they get the cacique? How did they get a hold of these people? Well, there was a battle here. There's not a doubt in my mind. And it was horrific. And when it was done, it was a slaughter ground. What happened here must have been horrific. Just absolutely unbelievable. But the Tocobaga people, I mean, they'd never even guessed that this was waiting for them. Never guessed that this kind of stuff could happen. But the Tocobaga people, they were very sophisticated. And I want to change anybody here's attitude about them being primal or primitive. They weren't. The truth of it is they had a whole different vision. Again, we want to get back to that. And I don't want you all to ever forget that. They had an entirely different human vision of the world than we do. You know, we have tried to make kings and queens out of them. We've tried to say all these different things that what they, actually Elizabeth and I just saw an archaeological program. They found a piece of metal up in a Huron city site. They found a big chunk of metal, right? It was too early for it. And they said, oh, they buried it in the center of the home, see? And they said, because it was evil. You're right, it's baloney. Because it was sacred to them. That's why they buried it. Who here would bury something evil in their home? Underneath their floor. See? But it's the archaeologists that told the Hurons, hey, this was evil. And they buried it. What a bunch of baloney that is. Real quickly, the Tocobaga, they nursed for 4.5 years. Mothers nursed for 4.5 years. And I want you just to contemplate on what that means. What kind of bond that forms between mothers and children. And that's the beginning of their society. And I want to thank you all for coming now. I guess I've vented enough, have I? But thank you all. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciated having you all stop by and say hello.